One of the most critical steps in story development is the process of world building. While some of this needs to be done before the story gets underway, the majority of it, for those settings that span multiple stories, is done organically, with each new installment adding more to the mythos. Told through exposition, plot, and character development, bit by bit we see more of the world that our favorite characters inhabit. Since I tend to prefer to work on my own settings where I know the characters fairly well, I put a lot of work into the rules of the setting, both who the players are and what kind of setting we're dealing with. As I often cite when starting any creative endeavor, you have to establish a baseline. The audience has to be grounded enough so that they know what's going on. And this doesn't mean that you have to decide on everything at once, but you do have to at least provide them enough so that if they were to experience it unbidden, that they would know what they were getting into without it being explained by someone who's already seen it. What makes world building a bit different is that it includes multiple elements, including both your characters, the setting, and their relationship to each other. What it does is it takes all of those elements as a whole and presents them to the audience in a way that makes sense. Strictly defined, world building is the process of constructing a fictional universe. It may not be immediately relevant to the story being told, but in the development of the world in which your story takes place, it is a key bit of information informing others of the thing that makes this world what it is. For example, the descriptions of factions and their general disposition. What do they want and how do they behave between each other? How much power does each one have, and what level of technology? Say that one is an advanced military culture and the other is a peaceful agrarian society. You could write a story where the military occupies the other nation and tell a tale about farmers resisting either directly or otherwise. But establishing the players and their history gives you more of a framework with which to build your ever-expanding universe. In a sense, it provides a framework upon which to position all the various pieces of the world you're creating. The more you know, the more you can tailor your current work to the details that will become relevant at a future date. You need to decide the rules of the universe. Anything that differs from the world we know should be considered. If it's a fantasy world completely created by you, then we need to know things like technology level, is there magic or not, what kind of races fill it, and so on. The more you decide, the stronger you can make the narrative. I often find world building to be one of the most rewarding parts of creating a new story. Anytime I come up with a setting, I can't wait to get in there and start deciding the who, what, where, and why. When you're creating the setting, I always love finding ways to set things up so that it all makes sense, because it's important to me that all the elements feel natural and logical given the history and other details that I end up making part of the story. If working in your own universe, the most important thing is to be consistent. Whatever you establish, stick to it. You can always retcon or change things later, but I always try to avoid that if possible. Whatever rules you come up with have to make sense, and they have to match with what you previously laid down, because two things people are really good at spotting is inconsistency and flaws in logic, especially if they're familiar with the source material. Now, when writing a story, it isn't necessary to get everything exactly right, but just be sure not to put anything blatantly wrong in there without an in-universe explanation. When working in someone else's world, it's important to take notes and to follow any precedents set down by the originating author. If they have a series Bible, it's a good idea to ask them for it. Remember, you're a guest in their house, so it's not polite to rearrange the furniture. In conclusion, world building is a fun and rewarding endeavor, and I hope you look for it in the next book that you read.
Thanks for watching, and if you liked it, click the subscribe button and leave a comment below. You can also find me on Twitter and a few other places on the web, or support me via Patreon or Ko-fi. Zebra hugs!